Space Corp 2025 to 2300 AD, designed by John Butterfield, published by GMT Games. This is easily one of my favourite games of the last 18 months or so. It's a game that details the tentative steps of mankind into the inner reaches of the solar system, on into the outer reaches of the solar system, and then finally beyond into the nearby stars and the galaxy. It's an interesting game. It has 3 separate eras. Each era is played out on a different board, meaning that to do a full playthrough of this one, I'll probably do 3 videos, starting with the first era Mariners, which we'll get to in a moment. It's a very peaceful exploration and conquest of the galaxy. There's no real combat in the game, and it's a very commercially focused conquest of the galaxy as well. You rule the galaxy through your economic power in this game. Perhaps rule the galaxy is not quite the best description, but it's a 4X game in which you exploit more than you exterminate. With that in mind, I will jump straight to the table for an overview of the first era. Here we have Space Corp Mariners Era set up and ready to play the solo game. I'll go from left to right, looking at the different parts of the board, and have a quick look at the cards as they have a certain layout, which is quite important to the solo game. So, top left then, we have the Mariners deck, Era deck. And this acts as a timer and is one of the era end triggers. If the deck runs out, the era will come to a close. On the left here, we have the offers taken from the era deck, and this is one of the 2 places you can take cards from with what's known as the research action and add to your hand. At the bottom, we have the competition offers action key, and this is important for the solo AI known as the competition. A certain action will trigger the removal of these cards, and certain occasions, which I'll get into as we play, will generate income for the competition. The competition cubes, all the cubes not used for the multiplayer game are placed here, and then they act as location markers on the main map for the competition teams, as they're called, as they explore the solar system. The map itself is the solar system from the sun to, or part of the solar system from the sun to the asteroid belt. There are a few divisions on the board, so these pie slices or sections here, these are the regions. Within the regions you'll have certain points of interest, whether that is a planet such as Earth or Mars. Mars is there, or Halley's Comet up on the top left, or Sisyphus here. These are places that you will explore. The squares are the exploration areas. The numbers bordering the regions are the distance between the regions, and you'll have to use your cards to pay the cost of travel from one region to another by adding up those regions plus a takeoff and landing cost. When you arrive somewhere and you wish to explore, you will place one of these tokens, and there are a couple of different levels. There's a first level and a second level, and these will have one of a number of different factors on them. They'll have a resource, in this case it's water. It will potentially generate income, in this case 1 trillion, and then it may or may not have a modifier in terms of some of your other actions as well. And when you, again as with moving, when you land on a location, if you wish to explore, you have to pay the cost that is printed on the board for doing that. We have at the top right hand side the asteroid belt, which is known as the first beyond point, and there's a points benefit for the first person or the competition to reach that point. You get an extra benefit in terms of points. Moving further along, we have the competition deck, and this again is another end of era trigger. If it runs out, the era is triggered, era end is triggered. But more importantly, what it will do is it will tell you what the AI, what the competition is going to do. I'll look at the cards in more detail in a moment. Then we have the business display, and these are objectives for both the player and the competition to achieve throughout the game. It gives a benefit in terms of profit, plus it will act as an end of era trigger when 6 of these 7 are finished. Now, it's worth noting that for all of the 4X trappings, there's exploit, expand, explore. There's no exterminate in this, but it's very similar in feel in many ways to a 4X game. At its heart though, in order to win, you do need to focus on the economic side of Space Corp in order to win. And that is done partly through winning contracts. This bit here is the player board. There are 4 spaces called infra slots, which is where you can place cards and leave the cards there as a permanent benefit. And 3 of the 4 spaces can be overwritten by other cards, except this space, not this space. As you move through the game, you will build, and you can build different bases, each of which will have a different effect. And as with all of the other features on the board, you will have to pay the cost printed. But first, you will need to explore. So, for example, you will end up with a situation that looks a bit like that as a fully explored, built-on location on the map. Each of these bases will do something slightly different, and how you use them is another key part of winning a game of Space Corp. Next to the bases is the progress wheel. This has less of an effect in the first era, in this Mariners era. However, it will, as time goes by and you play the full game, lead to the provision of additional cards that add an ongoing benefit, which doesn't really take effect until Planeteers, but you may find yourself looking at this early, because the earlier you can get those cards in the Planeteers era, the better. Plus, one of the contracts to fulfill in this era is to advance the genetics cube, which is the brown one, 2 spaces. The brown is genetics, the black is technology. There is a legacy production box, and this allows you to take one previously built base and place it here, and it acts as an ongoing benefit from the previous round or the previous era when you move into a new era. Okay, now let's look at the cards. The cards will have a few different sections. It's got a name, flavour text and a picture. It will have an action description or 2. If I just take a look at these, so for example, you'll have a few, take some from the competition deck just to give you a sense of what you have in here. There you go, a few different things. And that will be the action you can use the card for. Some will say upgrade as infra, which means you can then place the card into the player board. Some may have a choice of 2 things or various other things on there. The symbol here, the moon, indicates which era the card belongs to. In this case, it's Mariners. Then this part is important. This part is the instructions of how to run the competition in the round that you in the era that you use it. So, for example, if we look at this era, although it's a Planeteers card, we are using it not as a player card in this particular part of the game. We are instead using it as instructions for the AI. And finally, we have a couple of identification markers here, and that's important because some of the cards say start, and they are the first part of the deck and your initial hand when you start each era. In terms of differences between the multiplayer game and the solo game, the only real difference, or is the biggest difference anyway, is the edge, the cards. These are the take that side of the game, very minor, take that, or very mild, take that element. In the solo game, you have a separate effects table for when those are played, depending on whether we play it or whether the competition plays it. There are also some different effects for the bases. Other than that, the game is virtually identical to the multiplayer, and it's a game that plays very, very nicely in either format. I think that's pretty much it covered. There is quite a lot going on in Space Corp. However, once you get the hang of it, it moves very simply, very easily. So what I'll do is I will get ready to start the playthrough. I'll see you in a moment. Space Corp begins with a competition action. So with trusty player aid in hand, let's begin. And our first competition action is Lunar Lagrange Point 4. And this is known as a site action. And what that means essentially is you take one of the competition's cubes and you place it at the location mentioned on the card, which in our case is Lunar Point 4. Should that site be chosen again in a later card, you will do something slightly different, but we'll get to that part in a moment. Now it is our turn. And there's a range of different actions you can do, but you're limited to what you can pay for in the cards. So at the moment, the most we can really do is move 2. We could really, I think what we're looking at the moment is researching to get some more cards in hand. So that's what I will do, and what I will take is I'll take these 2 cards from the bottom, both of which say move 1 and explore 1. Replenish that display. That's the end of my action. Once you do get into the flow of Space Corp, it does move very quickly because you're only performing one action at a time. So we've done our action. The next thing we need to do is claim contracts. We haven't got to that point yet. There's no rewards for any of the opponents or the competition. We cannot perform a free team transport, which is requiring a base to be able to do that. We've already replenished the offer pile, and the action that we performed was to draw cards, so we don't have anything to discard. So the next thing to do is to draw a card if we have 4 or less in hand, and we've only got 3. So we take another card from the Era deck, which is another move 1. That is the end of my turn, and we move to the competition. This time we've got an action called Offers 2-4 and a moon symbol. So what that means is the competition will remove cards 2 and 4 from the offer, and then the benefit it will receive is as shown on the competition offer action key at the bottom of the board. Let's see what that actually means. So we will take cards 2 and 4, which is and pop them in a discard pile. We took a move and a build card, or cards with move and build on, which means we take 1 money or 1 trillion coins for each of those. So the competition profit margin will now move up to 2. That is the end of the competition's turn. And as before, we look through the turn order, claim any contracts, any rewards, all that sort of thing. So the only thing we really need to do though is replenish the offers. Okay, and that's my turn again. And we have now 4 move, 5 if you count what's on the board, and 2 exploration. So it might be worth making a move. Now in order to do that, you need to pay the amount of distance. There's a number on each of these spaces as mentioned earlier, and you add the totals together plus a landing cost of at least 1 and a lift-off cost of at least 1. Somewhere such as the Earth will have and other planets like Mars, and as you go through the game, Jupiter and so on, will have a gravity penalty. And the gravity penalty is going to add on at least 2 to the number that you have to achieve to be able to move. And so Earth's gravity penalty is 2. So to move from Earth, you take off, you pay for 1. Gravity penalty is 2, so that's 3. And then you land on the Moon, on Luna, which is another 1. So we need 4 in total. So what we would have to do is we would have to pay 4 in order to move 4. So we have 3 here, and then 1 on the board. That's a total of 4. And we discard those to the discard pile, and we move 1 of our cubes to Luna. The only thing we need to do now is run through our list, our play turn list, and the only thing we might need to do is perform a transport, but we can't do that currently because we have one cube in each place, and you need to do a transport between bases. And you need to wait until you've got a spaceport as well, if I recall correctly. Okay, so all we need to do then is draw a card because we have less than 4. And this time I'll take one off the top of the deck. And I've got Move and Explore. Competition. 1 Discovery and Contract 6. Okay, so Contract 6 is the cards in 3 infra slots contract, which is this one. So we claim that, or we place a cube to show that the competition has a stake in claiming that in a later turn. And then we choose a discovery, and I believe, just double check, but I believe it's the one with the highest ID number. It is. So the highest ID number, if we look at the board, there's a small circle next to the name. Might be better if I move in a little bit. So for example, Sisyphus there has a ID number of 10. So the location with the highest number is the one where we place our discovery tile, which in this case is going to be North Mars. So North Mars has an ID number of 13, and so the competition gets to place for free a discovery tile. It's a discovery 2. There's an E2 written on the location, and so this is the tile that the competition reveals. It is water. It provides 1 trillion in profit, and later we'll have an effect for base building should we get to build it. The competition doesn't necessarily follow all of the instructions like the player does, but it does get the 1 trillion. That's the end of the competition's turn. And that's how I go. If we look a little bit closer at the moon has a location square with E1, and that means explore 1. So we pay 1 explore in order to put a location discovery tile there of our own. And we take it from the E1 pile, and we have discovered an exotic element. And that will give us 1 trillion, our first money for the game, plus a P1. And that's important because that stands for production. And production is an action that allows you to generate profit, and it's another key way of winning the game. So the more bases you can have on locations with a P number, the better. And that is our discovery. Nothing to discard, so let's take a card because we've only got 1 left in the hand. And this time we have a build, and that's great. We need a build. In fact, we need a couple of build cards at least. But let's move now back to competition. Solar Lagrange point 5. Nice simple one. Lagrange point 5, just there. I'd never heard of a Lagrange point prior to playing this game, but apparently it's a point where theoretically it's possible to build space stations and the like in a stable orbit. So yeah, you learn things playing board games. Okay, our turn. I'm going to research and I'll take 2 cards from the top of the deck. And the 2 cards that I will take are move 3. That's what I need, a decent base card. We're finally moving away from those start cards and into the more high value cards. And so we've got 2 quite useful cards there. Moving into the rest of the turn, not a lot else to do. Still can't perform that team transport till we have a base. So we are drawing a card, because we still have 4 or less cards, and this time we have research 2. That's good, and or a genetics. Useful card. I'll explain that a bit later. So our hand is growing. We don't have a hand limit as such, but there are restrictions on actions once you get to a certain hand limit. So although we can have as many cards in hand as we like, you cannot perform the research action if you have more than 7 cards. So this becomes nullified, and you cannot take a card once you get over 4 at the end of the round. So it's the hand limit is restricted in other ways rather than a strictly rigid hand limit. Competition. Solar Lagrange point 2 / North Mars. Here we have a choice of sites, and we simply take the first one that is free, which is Solar Lagrange point 2. What you find in Space Corp, particularly playing it solo, is the competition spreads out so much more quickly than you, it feels. So our turn. Let's get a base. Let's build. We need to build onto that production site. So we have Luna as a B2. That is the cost to build. And we have a build 2. So we'll spend the 2 in order to build on the moon. Each site, each building has this rather complicated looking table, but it isn't really. And each build base that you build will have a build requirement. Some of them will need water, some of them will need production markers and so on. And in our case, we have a production value, which means we can build a refinery, which gives the tile a +1 production value. Or we could build industrial, which allows you to double the total build action elsewhere in the region. Now that's more benefit, I feel personally, later in the game as you get through to the other eras where the build costs do become so much higher. So let's build a refinery. And so we take our refinery tile and we place the base there. The site transfer, the team transport action, you do require a spaceport, and in order to build one of those at the Mariners Era, you do need to have a Lagrange point to build on. So I think we'll move to one of those next. Now we've got our production infrastructure started. We have 4 cards or less, so let's take 1 card. We have an explore and a build 2. But I think we may need to concentrate on filling up this infra slot, because we're going to need to pay some higher move costs soon in order to get out into Mars and particularly the asteroid belt. Okay, offers 2 and 3 and the moon again for the competition. So we take offers 2 and 3. And we've taken a move, a build and an explore. So the competition will get 1 trillion for each of the 3. So the competition now has 6 trillion in profit, and we have 1. Our turn, and this time I'm going to take what's the name of the action? I can't recall exactly. The upgrade action. This is where we have a may upgrade an infra. And so all you do with this action is you place one of these cards into an available space, and I'll simply place it here. And that is all you do on that action. Oh, I should have replenished the offers before. Okay. And now we take a card because we still do only have 4. But what was revealed on the offers pile now is a production action, which would be extremely useful to grab hold of, as with this infra eligible card that allows to build or explore. Let's see what the competition does, and then we'll think about what we need to do next. Okay, 1 discovery and contract 1. So competition places a claim in contract 1, which is the first production action. I think we might have to grab that card next turn. And then we have the discovery, and the discovery is going to be on South Mars, which is a location number of 12. So that is a E2. So the competition is taking all the good stuff. So we have a 2 trillion in profit for the competition. It has a p-value of 1, but it will increase the cost of building should anyone get to the building point, or at least if we get to the building point. So 2 trillion in profit for the competition. And now it's our turn. I think what I'll do is I'll use this card. We could use it for genetics, which means moving this cube around, which would go some way towards our first contract, which is, or one of the contracts, which is advancing the genetics cube 2. However, we can also use it for research, and because we've got that production action up there, I think it probably would be worth playing this card in addition to the research value here and grabbing 4 cards, including the production card and the infra explore card on the display. And then I think we'll take potluck, because those 2 start cards, the ones with the moon in the corner, the greyed out moon, are start cards. We're starting to get into the better stuff now, so let's do that. Let's pay our research, place for research, plus the research here means we can take 4 cards, and we will take the production, the explore, and 2 cards off the top. So what have we got? We have got the production, build and explore. Oh, remove and explore, that can be upgraded, and an explore and build that can be upgraded. So they're 3 pretty good cards. This one's interesting. We can produce, as we mentioned, or this is an edge, and this is where you can do a take that type action against the competition. We wouldn't use that text though, we would use the text in the player aid card, which is on here, and do a salvage. We'd gain a trillion and take the start cards. There's only 2 start cards, and a trillion is not a huge amount at this point, so let's do the production when we can, which will be next turn. Right, this time we cannot draw a card because you have far more than 4 cards. In which case we'd simply replace the offers and competition. Okay, Phobos and Deimos, they place one of their teams again up near Mars. You don't own a site when you simply have a cube there. Other players can go there, the competition can go there. Once you have built something on there though, in terms of a discovery, once you've made a discovery, if somebody else then goes and builds on that discovery, you have to pay them a contribution, if you like, which we'll get to if it comes up. It's a bit less common in the solo game, I've found, than the multiplayer. Once you have built a base though, the competition at least cannot go there. there's no conflict as in that sense. It's more of a worker placement type blocking mechanism more than a 4x extermination mechanism. But it's our turn, and we will do that production action, which simply says produce 1, and the one we'll produce is the moon with the refinery. So that's a production value of 2, which will give us 2 trillion. And nothing else to do that round, so the competition. Solar Lagrange point 2 and South Mars. So Solar Lagrange point 2, they already have a competition. Now, if they already have a competition, at a Lagrange point, we simply place a base. And the base that the competition can place at a Lagrange point is a spaceport. And the competition has exactly the same bases that we have, and they can provide benefits. It does depend on the base. Right, now in this case, if this was its first base, had this been its second base, it would have claimed the first beyond marker. And the first beyond marker would provide a significant benefit at the start of the Planeteers Era. There's almost a race element to this game in many ways. Okay. Yep, and the competition team comes off the board. Right, let's see. We have a whole stack of our cards here. And let's upgrade. Let's put our explore and build. And we're now 2/3 of the way towards our what actually should be our second contract, because we did that production action already, which means, and I neglected to do this at the time, means this contract is claimed. We take the benefit, which is 2 trillion. So we're now on 5 trillion. Competition team is removed. But we have now, with that card in the slot, we have now moved some way to claiming our second contract. And when the sixth one is claimed between the two players, the era ends. Okay, I think that's everything. We don't draw a card, we can't transport, no further contracts or anything like that, so competition. Deimos and Phobos, the other way around fortunately, because last time it was Phobos first, and that would have led to another huge benefit at this point in the game for the competition. But fortunately it's just placing a claim rather than building. So nothing else to do, so our turn. And I want to upgrade again with our card here, which does claim that second contract, and also minimises the chance of the competition stealing it from us, which is another 2 trillion for us. Now it's 8 trillion to the competition and 7 trillion to us. Offers 2, 3, 4 and a refinery symbol. I think that's a refinery symbol, a production symbol. Now we don't have any production cards. When a action symbol appears, and these action symbols at the bottom correlate to a symbol on the board, on the player aid, you don't gain a benefit for these at the bottom, you gain a benefit for the action on the card. We don't have a production action on the offers display at the moment, so we simply just remove offers 2, 3 and 4 and then replace them. As we replace these cards, if an edge card comes up, we would immediately do that edge action in the competition's benefit, but it hasn't happened yet. moving back to us. Let's see if we can't get out into space now. It costs 5. The key down the bottom says 5 to move to a solar Lagrange point. So let's simply use our 5 in the display. We don't have to use any cards if we don't want to. So we'll just use our basics infrastructure to get one of our competition, our other team or our own cube somewhere, and let's get it off to Lagrange point 5. So we can try and build there before the competition does, and give it that first beyond marker. Okay, nothing else for us to do. We have way more than 5 cards. So solar Lagrange point 2. It's not valid because it already has a space in Lagrange point 2, but it is a dual card. So we have North Mars, which will lead, I believe, to the placement of a base. Yeah. So the competition here, because we don't already have a competition team at that site, we just place a competition team, even though there's already a discovery. You need a team present before you can build, before the competition can build. And speaking of build, we need a build of 2 to build up that Lagrange point. I'll play the build of 2, which will give us our first spaceport. Okay, and now that will open up the 3 team transport action. You have to move from a base to a base with at least one base being a spaceport. You can only ever really have one cube in one base, but as we move out, that will become very helpful to move our people around the board, our cubes around the board. Competition. Halley's Comet. Just over here. Now our other contracts are 4 Lagrange bases, which are the points out in space around here and inside here. It is 4 non-Lagrange bases, which is on the planets and the comets and so on. At the first base on Mars, advancing the genetics cubes, and then bases in 5 regions. We have bases in 2 regions currently, but let's use our baseline move again. So our 5 move, I believe, top of my head, spaceports also give you a +1 to your move. No, sorry, it's a +2 to your move. So we have 1 to lift off, 2 to move across. We only need to play a 1 to land. We've got more than enough here. So we are now at Sisyphus with that team. No contract to be claimed, no rewards to give to the opponent for using their equipment. Our free team transport finally, which means we can move our team from a base to a base for free, so long as one is a spaceport. And we do finally have just 4 cards, which allows us to take an extra. And we have a move to and explore, another one that can be upgraded. Competition. We are probably about halfway. The Era deck runs out much quicker than the competition deck. And I've played this game before where I've only had 2 or 3 of the contracts fulfilled before the Era deck runs out. So the Era deck timer is usually the way the Era closes. But before we do that, let's take a move. No, we did our move. It's the competition's turn. And the competition is going to Phobos. They already have a competition present, so we place a discovery tile and then place a base. An E1 discovery tile when they have found an exotic element, 1 trillion and a production value. Now the bases. Made a bit of a mistake earlier. The bases for the competition are placed at random from a cup. not from the requirements. If then the base matches, or the location matches the base requirements, you get benefit. So I should have drawn randomly for this, thinking too much in terms of the multiplayer, but it's fine. It was only a Space Corp, and I caught it before the game has progressed too far. So this time, for the base over on Phobos, I have drawn a research base. And what you do is you check now the table for the research requirements. There are no requirements, and quite simply, its benefit is if I have more profit than it gains 1. Currently I don't, so there is no benefit there other than having an additional base in a region. Now that I've got my brain correctly into the solo game, let's take my turn. And I'd like to explore on Sisyphus, which is an E1. We already have an explore here in fact we have 2 explores in our infrastructure here, in our card spaces. So we place this one essentially for free, and it is a 2 trillion natural wonder, which now means we are equal with the competition. We don't draw another card. I don't feel the need to transfer any teams at the moment, so we simply move straight to the competition's action. Getting ahead of myself a little bit there. We offer offers 2 and 3 and the era action. So as before, we move offers 2 and 3, and we've taken away a build and an explore. Competition gets 2 trillion. And then we replace, keeping an eye out for the edge cards, which we don't have any of at the moment. Back to our turn then. Kind of want to try and get a base up on Mars, but at the same time I don't want to give too much. Or maybe we could go for bases in 5 regions. See how it goes, but let's use our build cards to build on Sisyphus. And Sisyphus, if you can see that, has a build of 4, which means we're going to need to use our build in our infrastructure together with a further 3, and let's use those 2 to pay for our build. And our build at a natural wonder, we have no choice but to place an attraction. That's the only thing we can place with a natural wonder, and it does to gain a P1 there, 1 production site, and our attraction is here. Okay, no contracts to be claimed, no rewards to be shared, don't feel the need to do a transport at the moment, don't need to replenish or discard, but we have only 3 cards in hand, so let's take another card. Competition's turn. Solar Lagrange point 1, which is down here. Nothing else to do. It's our turn again. I think I'm going to go to Mars, try and build on Mars, probably on South Mars. Now South Mars is going to cost 1 to lift off, 3 to cross, 1 to land, plus an additional 1 in order to land on South Mars. In order to build on South Mars, we're going to require 6 for the basic build cost, plus an additional 1 from the tile, which is a build of 7, which we don't have at the moment. Maybe it would be better to go somewhere like Demios to get the base in a region, or maybe even just get another Lagrange point or something. Either way though, I think we do need to move to that northern space because we can then go to the first beyond and grab that near the end of the game, end of the era. So let's do that. So 1 to take off, 3 to move across, 1 to land, and that is a total of 5. We have 5 in our slot, infra slots, so we do move straight to Demios. I don't have to discard anything, no contracts to claim. No, we will do a transport. Let's transport ourselves. Let's transport here. And then we've only got 4 cards, so let's take another one. And that is an Explore. You need 1 Explore for Demios, but let's go think about that in a mo. South Mars, no. So the competition is placing a team on South Mars. It's clearly got wind of our plans to build on South Mars. Okay. Yeah. Okay, the reason I'm moving these off the tile is because it's a question of ownership and giving each other rewards for building on things that the other player owns, which is where this action here comes in for the opponent's claim rewards. I've just realised, well, this team needs to come home. Okay, our turn. Now, Demios has a build cost of 5, but an explore cost of 1. We've got explore in our infra, so let's simply explore and grab the benefit, which is 1 trillion and a base of -1. So that means that is ours. Now, if the opponent does anything there, it will give us some money. Should we wish to build, it will cost us 1 less to build. That's the turn done. There's nothing else to do right now. So competition. North Mars. Okay, so North Mars, they already have a tile, they already have a discovery. So in this time, they place a base. And we'll get the procedure correct for 4 bases this time. And we've got an industrial. Place it on the tile. The team comes home. And industrial requires water or a production value. It is water, and so the competition's benefit will be to place a competition team and unoccupied site in the same region. If not possible, the competition gains 1 trillion. So there's a team there, team there, team there. Does that mean no? Everything's occupied, so it's just going to get 1 trillion. I think that's how we'll read that. If that's not right, please let me know. And now let's build. We have 1 build in our infra. We only need 4, but we'll have to pay the extra in order to build on Demios, which we will do. Demios has water, and sites that you can build with water are really an industrial tile. Okay, let's do that. Okay, the competition goes home. And we now have 4 bases. However, one of them is on a Lagrange port, so we don't have the contract for 4 non-Lagrange bases just yet. However, I've just realised the competition does have the first base on Mars contract, so that's an additional 3 trillion to the competition. It's now on 15. I don't feel the need to do a transport No rewards. Don't need to discard or replenish, but I have only got 3 cards in hand, so let's draw another card. We've got production. Fantastic. That is excellent. Competition. Halley's Comet and Sisyphus. The competition has a team at Sisyphus, and sending another team to Sisyphus will result in removing the draw and placing a discovery tile, awarding the trillion to the competition, and then removing the team and placing a base. So we have a discovery tile, which is a abundant ores. So there is a production value, even though it's 0, and a base of -2. No trillions for it at this point, but we do randomly draw a base, which is a spaceport, and it won't get any benefit for being there in terms of an additional build or base benefit, because the requirements don't match. Our turn. Now we do have at production action, we have at least 2 sites that can produce. The attraction gives us a production value of 1. The refinery gives Luna a production value of 2. And we could produce at both those sites if we grab a hold of that production card over on the offer display. So I will research, and let's research by grabbing that card and then taking 1 off the top. Look at that. Another production. Fantastic. No contracts. No transports, I don't think, at this point. So what we're looking at is replenishing the offers, and that's everything before the competition takes their go. South Mars, they're going to get another build. Yeah, remove the team, place a base. And I suspect that will also give them a contract. Check that one. Okay. Yeah, South Mars. The tile drawn was research, and the research has no match requirement. Therefore, if we have more profit, they gain a trillion, but we don't, we're actually behind, so they gain a trillion. And they do now have 4 non-Lagrange bases, 2 on Mars, 1 on Phobos, 1 on Halley's Comet, so they claim contract number 3 and 2 trillion. Our action is going to be to play 2 of those production cards. We can produce on 2 sites, 1 for each point in value, and so in total we will claim, top of my head, I think it's 1 per production. Where's my thing? I've forgotten. So rules checked, and the production value gives you 1 trillion per P number at the sites produced. So what that means is we had a P number of 1 here, thanks to the attraction. That is a trillion. And over on Luna, we had a P number of 2, because the site had a P number of 1, plus the 1 provided by the refinery. That's an additional 2. Okay, so now the scoring at the moment is 17 trillion to the competition, and we have 12. Okay. Looking at the board, I think our next move needs to be to try and grab a contract. And our sensible thing for us to do, given that they've taken so much of Mars, is to get a base in another region, which would give us bases in 5 regions. We have bases in 4 currently. Lagrange points are also relatively easy to get to and quite cheap. to build on. So let us use our move. We have a base move of 5 thanks to the cards. And let's simply go 1, 2, 3, 4. Off to solar point 4. We don't need to do anything else. I may move my team. No, I'll leave my team there, just in case we need to go and get that first beyond marker. Nothing else to do currently. We take a card because we only have 4. I do want to use that reduction action again, if I can, before the end of the game. Depends what happens in the next few turns with the competitions cards. Okay. 1 discovery, contract 6. Okay, contract 6 is taken. Don't do anything with that. 1 discovery is the highest point available, which is... I think they're all taken. Let me just clarify what we do. Okay, so if neither the contract nor the discovery parts of this action can be taken, the card is ignored and another one is drawn. So that's what will happen here. Lagrange point 5, lunar Lagrange point 5. Competition goes there. And it's our turn. And I want to build to get that contract. So let's build 2 to build on Lagrange point 4. That has a build cost of 2. There's no expiration. We'll pay 2 and we will place a spaceport. Okay, that's our action. We have now got bases in 5 regions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which gives us contract number 7 for a benefit of 2 trillion. Nothing else to do, so we simply take another card because we have 4 in hand. That's given us an edge card and an explore 2, and the edge for poach, if we play it, will give us two cards back, essentially. It'll just give us 2 cards back. May be useful, not sure. But anyway, competition's turn. Offers 3 and 4 and the site key actions. So 3 and 4 are these 2 at the bottom, which are removed. And we removed 2 build, so it gets a trillion for the fact we removed a build card. They're immediately replaced. Another production action. Oh, so tempting, so tempting. I found that production is hugely important, just hugely important to winning this game against the competition. It is in the multiplayer game as well, but in the solo game it seems to be even more important. But our era deck is running to an end. We only have a few more cards left, which could disappear quite quickly depending on what is in those competition cards that we draw in the next few turns. I can still research because I do only have 5 cards in hand. Okay, let's research. Let's take that production card and then let's take 1 off the top of the deck. we wouldn't be able to perform, if everything stayed the same, we've now got 7 cards, we would not be able to perform that research action while we still have 7 cards. We do now, there's no contracts, no rewards, no need to do a transport at this point. Replenish the offers and then draw the competition's turn. The competition is going to Lagrange point 4. Lunar Lagrange point 4 to be specific. And that is that one there, where it already has a team. So it will place a base. And this is the correct way to do it this time. Draw one at random. It's not a spaceport, so there's no benefit. It doesn't take that marker, which is good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, hasn't got any other Lagrange bases currently, just the 2, so it doesn't claim that 4 Lagrange base contract, because in addition to the competition, sorry, the era deck running out, we only need 1 more of these to be fulfilled, and we are triggering the end of the era. Highly unlikely that we'll advance our genetics cube 2 spaces now. Lagrange bases are possible, but I think it's much more likely we will run out of era deck cards. The competition still has absolutely loads of cards to go, so we are not likely to trigger the end based on the competition deck running out. So it's my turn, and I think what we'll do is we will make the most of those production cards. Production 2 I'll produce at 2 sites, same 2 sites as before, 1 trillion for here, 2 trillion for here, for a total of 3, and we're now just 1 trillion behind the competition. Nothing else to do. I still have more than 4 cards in hand. I've got 5, so let us now take another competition card. Offers 1, 2, 4 and research. Okay, it's going to take offers 1, 2 and 4. Of the cards that it takes, if any of them are research, it will get a benefit. However, 1, 2 and 4 do not have that research action, so there's no extra benefit to it, but we do immediately replace with these cards. We have an edge. When edge cards are drawn as part of the offers action, the competition immediately takes these, and they are usually not great for us. So our edge action is intercept, and what that means is the competition takes a second turn after this one. So not cool. But let's finish this action first. No further edge cards, frankly, but we are right down low on our era cards. So let us take the competition's next action. Offers 1, 3, 4 and explore as the location. So 1, 3 and 4, there's no explore, but it does remove those cards. We replenish them, and we have triggered the end of the era. Depending on how the era ends, depends on whether or not you get another turn. If the contracts are fulfilled, the 6 contracts, the era ends immediately. There's another condition for a later era, the final era of Starfarers. However, if there's a draw pile being emptied, we do take 1 more turn and then the era ends. So for our final action, we do not get to carry anything over to the next era, except the cards in our infra, and one production site that will go here that we can use. We don't keep any of these cards in hand. So what I'll do, rather than changing any upgrades or anything like that, what I'll do is I'll use the basic move, to move from Demios into the asteroid belt to be the first beyond, and that requires a move of 1 to take off, 2 to cross, and we can take that marker. And that is very important because the first person to get this gets a big benefit when setting up the Planeteers Era. I consider that a win. Okay, so that's the end of the Mariners Era of Space Corp. Hope that's given you an idea of how the first era plays. Second era does build on it in terms of rules, contracts and so on. As we are ending at the moment, we are 1 trillion behind. We have a reasonable infrastructure in the sense of we've got a bit of everything in the display. Not got very far with the progress wheel, which we may come to regret, but we'll see how that goes. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you wish to join me for Planeteers, I will be setting up and starting that shortly. Thank you very much.